So now we had completed our third unit. So this is an analysis phase, and then we'll move our system design. So we'll go for the system design. So after we had analyzed our problem, that is in our analysis phase, now we must decide how to approach for a design. So during our system design, we will devise a high level strategy, let's say a system architecture for solving our problem, and we can build, that's how we can build our solution. So we should concentrate on making the decision about the organization of our system into a subsystem and so on, and then we can allocate our subsystem to particular hardware or the software, or what are the major policy decisions that form our basis for your class design. So uh, in this unit, let's say this is fourth unit, so in this unit we'll learn about many aspects that we must consider when we are formulating our system design. So we also list out some common architectural styles, like we can use them as a starting point. So when we are going from this listing, it this means uh, this does not mean that we are going for the complete list, but we are having some architecture that can always be invented. Now we'll start with our overview of our system design. So during our analysis phase, the focus is on what. So right from your use case diagram to your application interaction model or application class model, we are focusing on the what the system needs to be done. That is, and we are not focusing on uh, how it is being done. So we are just uh, independent. This what's and how are this just independent. Now, so during our design phase, developers like because in design phase the major focus is on the developer, so developer can make decision about how the problem can be solved. So now here we are focusing on how at your highest level of abstraction, then we'll go for more details as far as more iteration and the more passes of our system design. So when we are considering this system design, so this system design is just a first design stage for devising the basic approach for solving a problem. So this during this system design, developers decide the overall structure and the style. Again, I'm just focusing on this. Developers decide on overall structure and design. So this is in first phase, in the second phase, and so on. So the system architecture determines the organization of your system into a particular subsystem. In addition to that, the architecture provides the context for your detailed decisions that are made in the later stages of your iteration. So we have to make some following decisions, that we have to estimate the performance, we have to make a reuse plan, we have to organize on the system into subsystems. We can identify the concurrency inherent in the problem. Then again, we should go for allocating the subsystem to a particular hardware, and then manage how can we manage our data store, or how can we handle the global resources, or how to choose an software control strategy, or the handle the boundary conditions, or the set trade-off priorities, and then select architectural style. So we'll start by estimating the performance. So during this estimating the performance, because we are in the early in the planning for a new system, so we must prepare a rough performance estimate. So what is this rough performance estimate? So usually software engineers call this as a bake of the envelope calculation. So the purpose is not to achieve the high accuracy, but yeah, we have to merely determine if the system is feasible or not. So we are focusing on just on feasibility of our system. Now, getting within a factor of 2, usually we are usually sufficient. Although what you can achieve depends on your problem. So the calculation should be the fast, and it involves some common sense. So we are when we are in estimating performance, so we must focus on we must include our common sense while designing the system. So we will have to make a simplified assumptions. We don't worry about details, just we just going for the approximation, estimation, or the guess if it is necessary. Let's consider again an ATM example. So suppose we are planning for an ATM network for a particular bank. So we might proceed just as follows, like uh, the bank has let's say 40 branches, then suppose there are the equal number of terminals in your supermarket and then the other stores. So suppose just on a busy day, the half of the terminal are busy at once. So we can assume that this terminal are busy without changing their results too much. And at that point, this is to establish where the reasonable performance limits or not. So suppose that each customer takes 1 minute to perform a particular session, and at the most transaction involved in a single deposit, or we can have some withdrawal, either we can deposit or withdraw. So we can estimate a peak requirement one particular 40 transaction per minute, or about we can say 1 per second, only about 1.2 1.5 per second. So this may not be precise, but yeah, it shows that we do not require unusually the fast computer hardware. The situation would be much different if you are estimating that the for a particular online, let's say, yeah, Amazon, yeah, okay, then online book seller, in which the computer hardware must have some big issues, like we are having some fast hardware, some high transaction speed, and high uploading speed and high downloading speed, and so thus we can perform the similar estimates for our data storage. We can count the number of customers, estimate the amount of data for each one, and then we can multiply with appropriate number of uh, customers. As I said that we don't worry about the detail, we just go for the approximate or estimate in the case. So for a particular case of the bank, the requirement for the data storage are more severe than the ATM computing machine. Okay? Because we don't need a high computing machine for ATM, but yeah, you have to go for data storage, and this must be a serious issue. And for a particular bank, this data and this transaction are just an enormous amount of data that is available. So the situation will be different for different situations. Like again, we are going from just like geographical information system, where we are getting some information from satellites. So in that case, we just have, or we have to focus both on the bandwidth of our system as well as the uh, storage of us for our system. So this design solely depends on your particular problem. When we are considering the ATM, so we don't uh, uh, consider data storage as a bigger issue. But when we are going for uh, bank, we have this serious issue for the data storage for particular bank. Then again, when we are moving for this ATM, we need high speed bandwidth. When we are in the bank, we don't need high speed bandwidth because we are in a particular bank. But when we are going for this particular geographical information system, so for this geographical information system, you need both high data storage as well as the high access bandwidth. That should be in your particular architectural issue. So we have to find some first step for uh, system design is to you have to go for a particular performance issues, and you have to estimate your particular performance. And then we are not going for that much detail for your particular performance, but what we can do is that we just approximate all those things. Let's say I need this amount of data for a particular, or a particular customer uh, gives near about 1 minute or 2 minute on a particular rating. So how many customers will be served by a particular uh, ATM machine for an busy day, or let's say for an uh, peak hours of business transaction time. So this is how you can make some simplified assumptions, and these simplified assumptions are just your guess or your experience or like your common sense or just an approximation. So this is how you go for your simplified assumptions. Now after uh, having this performance issues, then we'll go for reuse. So reuse, again we are going for reuse. So reuse is not just like your inheritance, but we are having some different things that are being available for reusing. So we have to make a reuse plans. So this reuse is often cited as an advantage of your object-oriented technology, but this reuse doesn't happen automatically. We have to plan all this uh, reuse. So there are two very different aspects related to a reuse. That is, you can use existing things or you can create reusable new things. So it is much easier to reuse existing things than to design new things for a certain uncertain uses that is to become. So someone must have designed these things in the past, and in order to uh, you can reuse, because this has been created, so using existing things is just very easy for us than creating new things. Though the point is that the most developers reuse existing things and only a small fraction of developers create a new thing. So this is just a big issue related to our software industry, because we are not creating that much new thing, we are just copying everything right from the uh, Stack Overflow, a different website. So we are not creating anything. We are just reusing the existing things. And we don't feel that we should start with the object-oriented technology to build a reusable thing. But that what we can do is that we are just reusing all the existing technologies. So when we are considering this reusable things, so these reusable things includes your models that you have created, like uh, spiral model or iterative incremental models or different state models or like application models and so on. Then in addition to these models, you are having some libraries, you are having frameworks, and you are having different patterns. So what are these? You are comfortable with the libraries, then you'll go for this framework, like you are having .NET framework, or you are having this Java virtual machine. So all these are just like a framework, and then we are having some patterns, how to solve a particular problem for a particular case. So these are the patterns. So this is how we can achieve reusability. So when we are considering this reuse of your model, so this reuse of model is just often uh, considered as the most practical form of your reuse. So the logic in and particular model can apply to the multiple problems. So this is how we can go for reusable plan. So we'll start a different components. So we'll start with the libraries. So what are these libraries? So we had used different libraries like hash include iostream.h, hash include stereo.h, or let's say uh, numpy or matplotlib or java.ut or java.bufferedstream and so on. So these are the different libraries. So a library is just a collection of classes, and these classes are useful in many contexts. So the collection of classes must be carefully organized, and so that your user can find them easily. Let's say we are going from, let's say, matplotlib. So this matplotlib is just your library for plotting uh, uh, your graphs in just like in MATLAB way, or you can use a visualizer for another way. So you have to organize all these things very carefully, because we are having lots of libraries that are being available, and this library is, so when a user wants to use this library, so he should be very comfortable while using this library. So you must find, or you must design some organized way for this uh, libraries. So what is the good organization? So this good organization takes a lot of work, and it can be difficult to decide where to place a particular thing or the everything. So let's say online searching can help, but there is no substitute for careful organization, because uh, when we are going from this careful organization or this good organization, that certainly help to find a particular resource for a user. So in addition to that, the classes must have an accurate, thorough description to help the user to determine whether this is relevant or not. So we are having different criteria or the qualities of particular good library. So let's say first is in coherence. So this is just, these are, let's say, these are few criteria where we can say that. these libraries are the good libraries, or organization of these libraries are good. So first is coherence. So coherence means your class library should be organized about a few and well focused. So they have a high coherence in between, or you are in high coherent functions uh, contained in a particular library. Then we'll go for completeness. So your class library should provide a complete behavior of your particular chosen theme, like in uh, again we are considering this like include iostream dot so it input all those things. But when we are covering, we are going to design that input stream, so we should also cover, let's say we are inputting integers, or we can also have provision for inputting characters and so on. So we are not just focusing on, let's say, considering only the integer numbers, or the or we can have only provision for a single character. So this should be complete, that we are going to take some inputs from the user, so we can take any type of input from your user. So that therefore what we can do is that we should design a complete library for us. Fine. Then again we are considering the efficient. I forgot to add efficiency over there. So what? No, okay. I forgot to add this consistency. So this consistency is just a polymorphic operation that should consistent names and the signatures across your classes. So uh, these names and the signature should be consistent right from your different classes that are available. Then again we are considering the efficiency of your library, so our good library. So what is this efficiency? Then a library should provide some alternative implementation of your particular algorithm, such as various sorts of sorting algorithms. So uh, that can save your trade and particular time. So this library should be efficient. It should provide, it should save your time, or it should save your space. So if you are going from developing this library, so this should provide some benefit to you, particular user. Otherwise, a user will be comfortable to create his own library, because the appropriate thing, or the main usage of his library is that it should save your time, space, or some another thing. So you should also focus on the efficiency of a system, because if a system is not efficient, so it is just useless for any in any general system also. Again we are going from the extensibility, so the user should be able to define your subclasses for your particular classes. So this is how we can go for your extensibility of particular classes, that we can extend our classes so on, so that we can use more and more, we can provide more and more definition for this function. So then we'll go for genericity. So a library should be parameterized classes per definition, uh, where it is appropriate. So when we are considering the genericity, that we should provide some information on how to use all those things. So this is how we can provide some genericity. Like for an example, let's say we use docstring in our Python. So this Python just helps, uh, provides a different parameters for particular your classes or particular function, and how to use them. So this is, you can go for your generosity, and this is how we can achieve all this uh, reusability for a particular library. But unfortunately the problem can arise when we are integrating this class library from, let's say, multiple sources. So developers are just an often dispersed parameter. Just a minute, I have some call. So developers are just an often dispersed for pragmatic decisions across the classes, and have some inheritance hierarchies. So let's say that the class library may adopt policies that are individual and sensible, but we are having some fundamentally incompatible with those and other classes that are being available. So we cannot fix such pragmatic inconsistency by specializing our classes, and although we can add additional code. So instead what we can do is that we must break encapsulation and rework on your particular source code. So we are having different problems. So these problems are very severe, and that will effectively limit our ability to reuse a particular code. Say we are having let's say we are having different types of problem associated with this libraries. Let's say we'll start with our argument validation. So as our application may validate the arguments as a collection of your individually as an enter. So and collective validation is appropriate for your command interfaces, but the user enters when all the arguments, so they must be checked one by one. So in contrast to your responsive user interfaces, we have to validate each argument and or interdependent or groups of arguments when as it is entered. So we are in different types of validation. Like when we are going from, let's say, on command prompt, so we have to check all those arguments at once. When we are going from, let's say, on the user interface, then we can uh, we should check all those arguments as your user enters them one by one. So this we can have problem. So when we are combining these libraries, let's say uh, some by validation by collections or others validation by individuals. So we should have some user interfaces associated with this. Now the another problem with your library is that your error handling. So the class libraries use different types of error handling techniques. So methods in one library may return your error codes to particular calling routine. For example, while a method in another library may directly deal with the other. So you should provide some error handling techniques. Then we are having some control paradigms. Like your application may adopt event driven, or let's say, or you can have some procedure driven control. So with when you are designing event driven control, the user interface invokes some particular method. With when you are going from this, let's say, procedure driven control, so the application calls your user interface method. So it is very difficult to combine both kind of interfaces within your application. So you must go for your control paradigm, whether you are going from this event driven or you are going from this procedure driven, and your application should focus on either event driven and the procedure, right? Then another problem is that we have to group operations. So the group operations are often insufficient and supposed to be the incomplete. For an example, let's say an object delete your primitive, and it may require your database logs, and it makes the deletion and then commit the transaction. If you want to delete a group of object as a transaction, the class library must have a group delete function. Yeah. Again, the one of the more important thing and the major concerns is the garbage collection. So class library use different strategies to manage your particular memory location to avoid memory leaks, because uh, every user is not having that high high specification is on his computer. So we should go for, again, garbage collection. Let's say when I was doing my PhD. So during my PhD, I'll created in 65,000 cross 500 metrics. So I'm just having a 2 GB of RAM. So uh, the first important thing for me to develop that application is that I have to collect garbage in some particular interval of time, so that my memory doesn't leaks everywhere or every time. So when we are considering this garbage collection, so your particular library should apply some different strategies to avoid to manage your particular memory allocation, and thus we can achieve your memory. So a library may manage your memories for string by returning a pointer to actual string, or returning a copy of string, or returning a pointer with your read only access. So garbage collection strategies may also differs. Like you can have some mark and sweep or reference counting, or let's say letting the application to handle garbage collection. So just an easy that you are when you are in the .NET or when you are in your Java, that you can call garbage collection right from your library, so that you can avoid this memory leakage. And the last problem associated with this libraries are uh, name collisions, because the class names, public attributes, and the public methods lie within a global namespace. So we must hope that they do not collide with the different class libraries. And most classes libraries are distribution prefix aimed to reduce the likelihood. So just a minute, I am just taking a call. Okay, I'm back again. I'm just having some call from Reddit. So I'm again just focusing on let's say reuse plan. Then we'll move for next thing is that framework. So while making your system design, the third important thing or the third important criteria is that we should go for frameworks. So what are these frameworks? Let's say again, just to understand this framework, just consider the example of your .NET framework and your Java virtual machine. So these are considered as a framework. So keeping in this mind, then we'll start our framework. So framework is just a skeletal structure of your program that must elaborate to build your complete application. So this elaboration, when we are considering this elaboration, so this elaboration often consists of specializing your abstract classes with a behavior specific to a particular individual application. So a class library may accompany a framework so that your user can perform much of the specialization, let's say, by choosing an appropriate subclass or rather than by programming subclasses behavior right from your scratches. So a framework consists of more than just the classes involved and include paradigm for your flow of control and shared invariance. So a framework tend to be specific to a particular category of your application. Or a framework class libraries are typically an application specific and not suitable for a general use. Let's say we are having some .NET framework. So this is related to a particular specific uh, let's say .NET applications or VB.NET application or C#.NET application, and how it calls uh, some function from your C# or let's say we are going from Java solution, so how it calls your main function right from your main classes. So this is how we can achieve. Uh, so we can say that it provides a specific solution to a particular problem. Then we are having some patterns available. In addition to that, uh, uh, what I'm saying is that mm, framework. So again, we are when we are moving from this reusability, so we are having some patterns available. So these patterns are also being created by different user, or we can create new patterns for a generalized problem. So these patterns are considered an proven solution for a general problem. So we are having various patterns that target the different phases of your software development cycle. So there are some patterns for analysis, your architecture, or your having some designs, or like say implementation. So we can achieve the reuse by using the existing patterns, or rather than we are reinventing the solution right from your scratches. So a pattern comes with some guidelines on when to use and how to use, as well as there are some trade-off issues, like you are in different patterns like abstract factory patterns or the singleton pattern and so on. So I think that these patterns are not in your syllabus, but yeah, if you had uh, uh, use this component technology or the design patterns for your particular in your syllabus, so I thought I thought that you are not comfortable with the design pattern, so I'm not including all those patterns. But yeah, we are getting many benefits from these patterns, like uh, the one advantage of this pattern is that these patterns are carefully considered by uh, others, and then these are already been applied to your past problem. So consequently, one we can say that our pattern is more likely to be correct than the robust, and this is robust, then this is untested and the custom solution that is being reinvented or invented for a particular problem. So when we are using these patterns, we can tap into a language that is familiar for your many developers. So as a body of literature uh, is available for particular documents or uh, patterns, or that say that it can explain the sub uh, explain the usage of this pattern. So we can regard patterns as an extending your modeling language, and uh, we we don't need to think about the terms of primitives, or we can also think in the terms of the recurring combination. So patterns are just a prototypically model of your fragments, and that distills some of the knowledge for your experts. So a pattern is different from your framework when a pattern is typically a smaller number of classes in the relationship. When in contrast, the framework is much broader than the scopes, and it covers the entire subsystem or the application, or we can say that we can include all very it contains very large domain. Then let's say consider your particular example, let's say for this ATM system. So the notion of your transaction offers some possibilities of reuse and transactions that are uh, frequent occurrence, and let's say we are in this commercial software that supports, and so there are some opportunities for reuse the communication infrastructure that connects to your particular centralized system of your ATM, or let's say we are in some banks. So again, when we are going for this, uh, so this is how we can go for reusability, and then we'll move for the breaking our system into subsystems. This is again new step. So this is not uh, so by error this I put in this point. So this is again new point. So we are making a reuse plan. Then again we'll start by breaking a new system into subsystem in the next class. So this is for all for today's class. So if you are having any questions, then you can ask me. Otherwise, I'll stop my recording and then